Bitcoin is a digital currency that operates without a central authority, government, or banks. It leverages blockchain technology to facilitate peer-to-peer transactions across a decentralized network. Often dubbed magic internet money, Bitcoin represents a paradigm shift in how we perceive and interact with money in the digital age. In the early days of the internet, and still for most of us in our daily life, transferring value requires intermediaries like banks or payment processors. Bitcoin emerged as the first internet-native money, enabling direct value transfer without middlemen. This innovation opened up possibilities for global, frictionless commerce. On January 3, 2009, Bitcoin's mysterious creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, mined the first block of the Bitcoin blockchain, known as the Genesis block. Embedded within it was the message, "The Times 3rd of January 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks." This was a commentary on the financial instability of the time and highlighted the need for a decentralized monetary system. By mining the Genesis block and promoting Bitcoin's open-source code, Satoshi kickstarted an ecosystem that incentivized early adopters to participate and build trust in the network. Satoshi Nakamoto, whose true identity remains unknown, published the Bitcoin white paper titled Bitcoin, a Peer-to-Peer Electronic Cash System on October 31, 2008. The paper outlined how a distributed ledger, the so-called blockchain, could solve the double spending problem without relying on a central authority. The double spending problem in digital currencies refers to the risk of the same currency being spent more than once, as digital data can be easily copied, solving the biggest problem in digital currencies. Traditional financial systems prevent this by relying on central authorities like banks to verify transactions. Bitcoin solves this problem using blockchain technology. Every transaction is recorded on a public, immutable ledger, ensuring the same Bitcoin can't be spent twice. Miners validate transactions through a process called proof of work, and the network's consensus mechanism ensures that only valid transactions are added to the blockchain, preventing double spending without a central authority. The white paper became the foundation for Bitcoin and inspired a global community of developers, entrepreneurs, and enthusiasts to contribute to its growth. After releasing the white paper, the Bitcoin Forum, also known as Bitcoin Talk, was used by Satoshi Nakamoto and became the hub for early discussions, development updates, and community building. It was here that ideas were exchanged, software improvements were proposed, and the groundwork for Bitcoin's future was laid. Bitcoin's origins are deeply rooted in the cypherpunk movement, a group of activists advocating for privacy-enhancing technologies as a route to social and political change. They believed in using cryptography to empower individuals against institutional surveillance and control. After laying the foundation for Bitcoin through the white paper and the early development of the network, Satoshi Nakamoto mysteriously vanished from the public eye in 2011. By that time, Bitcoin had gained momentum, and a robust community of developers and enthusiasts had formed around the project. Nakamoto's disappearance was deliberate, leaving only a few cryptic messages behind, including an email stating to have moved on to other things. There are several theories about why Nakamoto chose to vanish. One of the most sufficient is that by stepping away, Satoshi ensured that the network could continue to grow organically, free from the influence of a single leader. Satoshi's exit reinforced the idea that Bitcoin belongs to the community, not to an individual, contributing to one of Bitcoin's core principles, decentralization. By disappearing, it allowed the community to take ownership and achieve consensus without relying on a single figurehead, ensuring the network would remain truly decentralized. Since even today, Satoshi Nakamoto's real identity is still unknown, one of Bitcoin's defining characteristics is its lack of a central authority, or CEO. This decentralization ensures that no single entity controls the network, making it resistant to censorship and manipulation. Decisions are made collectively by the community, and consensus is achieved through established protocols. Bitcoin operates on a decentralized network, meaning it is not controlled by a single entity like a government or corporation. Instead, it relies on thousands of independently run computers, called nodes, spread across the globe. These nodes run the Bitcoin Core software, the open-source software underpinning the network, which implements the rules of the Bitcoin protocol. By validating transactions and maintaining a synchronized ledger of all Bitcoin activity, nodes ensure that the network remains secure, transparent, and resistant to tampering. This decentralization ensures that no single authority can alter Bitcoin's protocol. As defined in Bitcoin Core, Bitcoin's protocol dictates a maximum supply of 21 million coins, making it a deflationary asset. This built-in scarcity contrasts with traditional fiat currencies, which central banks can print at will, potentially leading to inflation. It is this unique combination of decentralization, scarcity, and transparency that sets Bitcoin apart from traditional forms of money. In Bitcoin's network, a block is created approximately every 10 minutes. This 10-minute interval is essential for maintaining the security and stability of the blockchain. The 10-minute block time in Bitcoin, chosen by Satoshi Nakamoto as a deliberate design decision, represents an average time between blocks. The 10-minute interval provides enough time for new blocks to propagate through the decentralized network, ensuring that all nodes receive and agree on the latest transactions before the next block is mined. To ensure that blocks are mined roughly every 10 minutes, Bitcoin's protocol automatically adjusts the difficulty of the cryptographic puzzle miners need to solve. If blocks are being mined faster than 10 minutes on average, the difficulty increases, and if blocks are being mined slower, the difficulty decreases. This automatic adjustment, known as the difficulty adjustment, ensures a steady rate of block creation over time, regardless of how much computational power is used for mining. Bitcoin transactions are the fundamental actions through which users transfer value on the network. Each transaction involves inputs, which reference the source of the funds being spent, outputs, which specify the recipients, and the amount being transferred. Transactions are organized into blocks, which are essentially collections of transactions assembled by miners. These blocks are then added to the blockchain, a public ledger that permanently records every transaction ever conducted on the Bitcoin network. Miners create these blocks through a process called mining, where multiple miners compete to solve a complex cryptographic puzzle. The first miner to solve the puzzle gets the right to select a number of transactions, create a block of them, and add this block to the blockchain. The miner is then rewarded with newly created bitcoins, the so-called block reward, as well as transaction fees paid by users to incentivize miners to add their transaction to the next block. This system ensures the integrity and security of the Bitcoin network, while also controlling the issuance of new bitcoins according to the protocol's predefined rules. Another important part of the Bitcoin Core source code is the halving event, which is triggered after every 210,000 blocks, which, given the 10-minute block time, occurs roughly every 4 years. This means that after 210,000 blocks have been mined, the block reward that miners receive for adding new blocks is cut in half. Until today, we have seen 4 Bitcoin halvings, reducing the block reward from 50 Bitcoin per 10 minutes at inception to the current 3.25 Bitcoin per 10 minutes. The last Bitcoin is expected to be mined around the year 2140, with the final Bitcoin taking around 34 years to be mined due to the exponentially decreasing block reward. This mechanism guarantees that the total supply of Bitcoin will always remain capped at 21 million, ensuring its scarcity and preserving its value proposition. Just as traditional currencies like the dollar and the euro are divided into smaller units, pennies for dollars and cents for euros, Bitcoin can also be broken down into smaller fractions. These smaller units are called satoshis, named after Bitcoin's creator, Satoshi Nakamoto. One Bitcoin is composed of 100 million satoshis, allowing for precise transactions and accessibility, even for very small amounts of value. Let's walk through a clear, step-by-step example of what happens when person A sends a Bitcoin transaction to person B. For this scenario, let's imagine Alice wants to send 1 Bitcoin to Bob. Here's a step-by-step breakdown of what happens during the process. Initiating the transaction. Alice uses her Bitcoin wallet to create a transaction. A wallet is software that allows users to manage their Bitcoin addresses and private keys. We will have a closer look at wallets later in this course. In this case, Alice enters Bob's Bitcoin address and specifies that she wants to send 1 Bitcoin. The wallet software constructs a transaction that includes an input, where the Bitcoin is coming from, in this case, Alice's Bitcoin address, an output, where the Bitcoin is going to, in this case, Bob's address. An amount, the number of Bitcoin or Satoshis to send. A transaction fee. The wallet automatically adds a transaction fee, which is paid to miners for processing the transaction. Signing the transaction. Alice's wallet signs the transaction with her private key. This digital signature proves that Alice is the owner of the funds being sent and allows the transaction to be securely broadcast to the Bitcoin network. The private key is never shared. It only signs the transaction, which allows the rest of the network to verify the signature using Alice's public key. We will have a closer look at private and public keys in the next lesson. Broadcasting the transaction to the network. Once the transaction is signed, the wallet broadcasts it to the Bitcoin network. This means the transaction is sent out to Bitcoin nodes, the computers running Bitcoin software, which then relay the transaction to other nodes in the decentralized network. Transaction propagation and verification. As the transaction spreads through the network, each node that receives it checks its validity. Is Alice's signature valid? Does Alice have enough Bitcoin in her address to cover the transaction? If the transaction is valid, it is added to the pool of unconfirmed transactions, also known as the mempool. At this point, the transaction is pending but has not yet been added to the blockchain. Mining and block creation. The transaction waits in the mempool until a miner includes it in a block. Miners select transactions from the mempool, prioritizing those with higher fees because they earn those fees in addition to the block reward. Miners are engaged in a process called proof of work, where they compete to solve a complex cryptographic puzzle. Solving the puzzle allows the miner to create a new block of transactions. Imagine the puzzle as similar to guessing a random number. Miners essentially make guesses by running different calculations thousands of times per second. They try to find a specific number, called a hash, that matches the network's difficulty target. This process is random, and just like trying to guess a number, it requires a lot of trial and error. Once a miner guesses the correct number, they solve the puzzle and are allowed to add a new block of transactions to the blockchain, which includes the transaction from Alice to Bob. Transaction confirmation. When a block containing a transaction is added to the blockchain, the transaction is officially confirmed. Before this happens, all nodes in the network validate the block to ensure that the proof of work is correct, verifying that the miner has successfully solved the cryptographic puzzle. A confirmation indicates that the transaction is included in a block and recognized as valid by the network. After the first confirmation by a node, Bob's wallet reflects that he has received 1 Bitcoin from Alice, allowing him to use or hold it as he wishes. On May 22, 2010, developer Laszlo Hanyecz made the first real-world Bitcoin transaction, as described in our step-by-step process, by purchasing 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. This day is celebrated annually as Bitcoin Pizza Day, marking a significant milestone in Bitcoin's journey as a medium of exchange. Around the same time, in June 2010, the first Bitcoin faucet was introduced by Gavin Andresen, allowing users to receive free Bitcoin to help familiarize them with the currency. This faucet distributed 5 Bitcoin to each visitor, fostering early adoption and expanding Bitcoin's user base. Together, these events symbolized Bitcoin's growing presence in real-world use and the broader digital economy.